job not done. A Nigerian young man who drives taxi, shuttles the airport and a few hotels in the Federal Capital Territory, in Port Harcourt, in Lagos, in Abuja, in Kano. If you tell him, what are you doing? Say, I'm looking for a job. What is he looking for? He wants his name on the payroll of government for job not done. What he's doing is earning him money. But that is in Nigeria countries, that is not job, because it's not on the government payroll. And he wants to get access to the government payroll for work not done.
For doing nothing.
That is what we call job creation. You put people on the payroll for job not done and pay them. But if you generate job, let us take an example. If the agricultural policy is harnessed along the industrial policy to revamp the textile mills, three things will happen. The textile mills will buy up the cotton produced by the farmers. The farmers will need more hands to produce more cotton. And that means there is a need for the financial policy to give them more money to access more labor, access more input, access more machineries. By so doing, mechanics are employed to repair the farm machineries. Transporters are engaged carrying the cotton from the farm to the cotton mills. All those mills are employing people. The transporters need vulcanizers to patch their tires when it deflates. This is job generation. They are not coming to Katsina State government or Sokoto State government where they are producing this cotton to get salary. They are drawing their salary from the value chain. The textile mills will employ people to produce this textile material. By the time they are produced, another person has to carry from the textile mills to the market. That person also needs a motor boy, he needs a driver, he needs a mechanic, he needs a cashier. All these people are employed on the value chain. They're not on the payroll of the state government. The products get to the market, tailors need to make them into shapes for us to wear. These people are all employed. As they are doing this, they have no time to wash their clothes. Laundrymen have work to do. These laundrymen and the drivers all need to have a haircut. Those whose children are out of school, we need the children to go to school. The educational policy has to now co-join with the agricultural policy. And the educational policy has to make provision to train the manpower to man these machineries so that agriculture can transform from hoe and cutlass agriculture to mechanized agriculture. Because the machines don't drive themselves.
Yes.
They don't repair themselves. So the education system, the policy of education has to now incorporate agri-education. That was partly carried out by the Babangida administration when he created universities of agriculture. Unfortunately, universities of agriculture are running loan programs. Instead of agri-mechanization, agri-production, animal production, crop production, and all these things, we need manpower in all this. As we speak today, we use fertilizer in this country. Less than 40% of fertilizer we need and use here are blended here. Almost all the herbicides we use are foreign. So we need educational policy to support the agricultural policy. That's why I say agricultural policy is an aggregation of all other policies around the agricultural ecosystem. And that is what the governments in the past did not do. That's why I say the farther we can look into the past, the farther we can also see into the future. The incoming government should look far into the past so that we can see farther into the future. So that agricultural policy will not be a policy in isolation. It will be a policy in aggregation. So that we look at the policy of education, policy of finance, policy of infrastructure, policy of education. So all this will aggregate into boosting the agricultural policy and make agriculture attractive. Because one of the major problems of agriculture and agricultural policy in Nigeria is that farmer and farming is for poor people. The concept of the farmer as a poor man has made farming not encouraging. And the protection the farmer deserves in civilized world or in saner climes, like my friend BKO would say, in saner climes, we have what we call crop insurance. That the farmer who toil day and night all through the year to produce this crop should be exposed to a crop insurance should there be failure. Just like the man who flies the aircraft have insurance for the aircraft. The man who drives the cars have insurance for the car. The farmer should have insurance for the crops, should have insurance for the livestock, so that gives him the guarantee that should the unexpected happen, he is still in business. This is what the incoming government should factor into agricultural policy. That agricultural policy is not a policy in isolation. It is a policy in aggregation.
Thank you so very much, comrade. I just hope the incoming government is listening to you right now, because you said a whole lot of things that are very important for agriculture to thrive in Nigeria. The thing is, governments just come and then they look at, we need to give farmers money, and at the end of it, like you said, the cronies and then the people in government end up getting the money, and it doesn't even get to the people that it's supposed to get to. But then there are so many other things, like you talked about the insurance, you talked about the fact that agri-policy should not even be in isolation. There is the education policy, which should support the agri-policy and all of these things that you have talked about. So for me, this is already like a rich policy review for the incoming governments to look at. That going forward, to be able to have sustainability in agriculture, we need to have long-term plans. We need to have long-term policy, unlike what we have. You made example of the Malaysia government that came to learn here, and then at the end of the day were importing from them today. How did they do it? There is the plan, the long-term thing that at the end of the day, we don't depend on governments alone, but the agri becomes dependent on the system in itself, not just the government. And that's actually very, very important. Thank you so much, comrade. You have done justice to agricultural policies today. Maybe this is the last thing that I would like you to just give your view about. I just want you to, in 2 to 3 minutes, talk about how can we ensure sustainability in policy. For example, we have said all of these things. We have said, we need to have other policies to be able to work in line with the agri-policy and all of that. But how do we ensure sustainability? That, we now have agri universities, and then at the end of the day, they are even teaching law, they are teaching business administration, which has no business to do with agriculture. But then, like you said, agri-policy cannot stand alone. So even if we have University of Agriculture, there is still the tendency that we need to be able to teach these other things too in those universities. For example, we need finance in agriculture. So if finance is taught in university as it relates to agriculture, it makes a lot of sense, does it? So I just want you to help us look at sustainability of these policies going forward.
Yes, policy sustainability is a function of legislation. There have to be a legislation to sustain the lifetime of the program. The problem with Africa in general is nobody plans with Africa, because Africans do not have plan. So nobody plans with Africa. If you look around for the people who can afford car, if you go to the car stand, they'll tell you this American spec, this Europe spec.
True.
Have you seen African spec car before? Nobody's planning with us because we don't have our own plan. People plan with you if you have a plan. No clothes are made for us. If you see suits, they are made for people in Canada, in Russia, in Ukraine. We only wear them. There's no African spec, even in clothes. That means we have to make our own African specs here. There is no car. All the cars we buy is American spec, Canada spec, Europe spec, German spec. We only experiment it with our own place, whether it will work here. It doesn't work, we pack it. Agriculture as a policy should be sustained through legislation. There should be a legislation that agricultural plan should roll for minimum of 20 years. And that agriculture is not just a sector, it is the controlling sector. All other sectors should revolve around agriculture. Industries revolve around agriculture. I spoke with one director in the ITF, Industrial Training Firm, and I said, what are you people training? That in saner climes, the industries pay a certain amount of money called the Industrial Education Tax for to the universities to train graduates to work in the industries. As a farmer of 3, there's what I should pay to the Department of Forestry so that they can train forestry experts to come out of the university and help work in the plantations where I'm managing. As a farmer of birds, I should pay a certain amount of money as tax to the animal production department of the universities. So that education and agriculture should interdepend on each other. The manpower requirement for the agriculture should be trained in the universities, funded jointly by the farmers or the farms and the government. The industries should jointly fund education so that the manpower requirement for the industry should be produced in the university.